Hello, thank you for checking out this solo playthrough of the Strays. This is a scenario example from one of the historical campaign sections. This is the enemy that we'll be facing, and we're going to use 3 heroes or ally characters. The Crackshot is a sniper. The Scout is an expert at reconnaissance, and the Medic is good at healing himself and the other allies. This demo area is less than a metre wide and only 50 centimetres deep. The aim is to give you an idea that it can be played in a fairly small area. We've just rolled the activation phase and generated an event. In this case, a booby trap has gone off, a grenade. In this case, a randomly selected ally fails their demolition test and suffers 5 ranged attack dice. Some of those end up as wounds. One of the neighbours also takes some damage. We then proceed to the end of this tile section. The Crackshot's taken the high ground, hoping to be able to pick off some enemies soon. Here's the new tile section, and as the new tile section is placed, you roll a d6. If it's a roll of 1 to 4, it corresponds with one of these enemies. In this case, I generate 5 rifle infantry. They're waiting for the next activation phase, and then they'll be deployed. There's a chance in the activation phase even more enemy will be placed, so we're just waiting to see what happens. In this case, I find some gear. The Medic finds a radio. It's a unique item, so they can only have one of those. It gives them +1 leadership. Each character has a stack of different skills. These are on the right hand side. The number represents the amount of d6 they can roll to see if they pass a test. The Crackshot finds a ration pack. This could be handy later on when they need healing. Each mission has a unique scavenge gear table. If an item has a number in brackets at the start, that's the activation dice required to use that item. Time for some combat. Here the Scout moves up and takes a couple of shots at the rifle infantry that are up in the fortified position. They then use one of the activation dice to take cover. Taking cover gives you bonus armor save. Here I'm just repositioning some of my pieces and using the lull in the battle to heal some of the characters. Here I generate a lone submachine gunner. Technically they should be deployed at the furthest exit, but I feel it makes more sense that they're deployed in this raised defended area. It's my own custom made terrain, so I have a license to make calls like that. Despite the extra defense, they managed to dispatch him pretty quickly. They then move on, with the Crackshot taking the tower as a way of gaining a good vantage point for the next tile. As the heroes proceed through the next tile, the furthermost tile is removed. This is the Fog of War rule, and it means that you don't need to have a lot of tiles left, and enemies that are deployed don't have to deploy too far away. Here a submachine gunner is joined by a couple of his friends through a random event. Initially the Crackshot does some good damage. The Scout engages in hand-to-hand combat and takes some of the damage. In the next couple of rounds they turn their attention on the Medic and do a fair amount of damage using their MP38s. It was at this point that I started rolling some low activation dice, and the ones that did actually give me good attacks were rolling poor attacks. So the submachine gunner started to tear away a few health points without me getting rid of them. I generated another corridor section, but this time it didn't have any enemy in it, at least until I stepped in and generated a random event. Then a couple of submachine gunners ambushed me from behind. Next reconnaissance phase, and I reveal the objective room. I check out the mission details. The objective room has 1 submachine gunner and 6 riflemen. I position them far away from the characters and the entrance point, in areas that they might actually take that offer defense. All enemy have a stance. It's either aggressive or defensive, and mostly focused on melee or ranged. All of these characters are aggressive and ranged, so if they find themselves in a situation where they can't hit one of my characters, they'll move to a new position. The scout, and then followed by the medic, takes this other small dugout position on the side, where they can fire and then use it for cover. The crack shot rolls a couple of good 6s, so I decide to leave them in an open space, but they make some pretty handy attacks, including some critical hits, and take out a few of the enemy. It's not an official part of the rules, but when I'm playing, when one of my characters has cover, I put a token underneath to remind me that they have that bonus armor save. You might have noticed that I'm also using an inch ruler to measure for some of the movements and for the range of the attacks. That's because I don't have spaces on this custom built terrain. The mission finishes up successfully, with all of my characters surviving. Everyone gets to roll on this scavenge gear table, and there's also a bonus gear item in this particular mission as part of the objective. After this mission, there are between mission events and different locations you can visit to gear up and maybe learn some new skills. None of the characters earned enough XP to go up a level, but here's an example of one of those sheets. Thank you for checking out the game. If you want to know more, ask me in the questions section below.